Welcome back. Hello, everybody. It's another Thursday night Minutes with Milo show. Data storage. Digital data storage. What's it about? How did it happen? I don't know. And where's it going? So, I was thinking, and I heard this on, was it a podcast or the news? Someplace. Somebody, some company has my hat, my what do they call these things? Toboggans, beanies. I think it's more the camera. It really messes with my head. I can't get now. See, this ear feels like it's cold, and this ear feels like it's all covered up. When I do this, look what. Maybe my ears are messed up. Maybe. Maybe that's what it is. The ears are not straight across from each other. It bothers me. How's that? Can you tell a difference? Uh, oh man, I don't know. I'm just gonna put it where it feels comfortable, and you guys and gals have to live with it. All right, so I can't think of anything else. Data storage. I heard a far out story about a company that's looking to do something out of the ordinary, but still not crazy with data storage. And we'll look at kind of start out a little bit about the history. And here's something I can tell you I don't fully understand, even though I used to, hey, Craig, what up? What I don't fully understand, even though I used to do a lot with computers, and I mean, I do understand it in some ways I don't understand it, is digital versus analog storage. Okay? So, when we look at this data storage history here in a second, it's going to talk about what I consider to be analog storage. And analog to me is you take like a voice recording and you record it on an album or record it on a magnetic tape. What is up, Freddie? I don't know. Everybody in the chat, Craig. Welcome Freddie to the chat. What's he been doing? Where you been? Did you ever buy that hot rod car? We've been meaning to ask you. I thought you did. Sold the truck, bought another smaller truck. Freddie's been up to, there's Garthog. He's back. So Freddie's been up to what Freddie things, been swapping and trading, I think. I don't know. I know he's traded, swapped, big truck, big awesome truck, just little baby truck. Little baby truck, that's a nice truck. This baby truck. Maybe he'll fill us in on what he's done. I still want to know if you bought that awesome car. I think you did, but maybe you didn't. I did, but might sell it later. You always want to sell it later. Do I want to buy it? Well, yeah, I want to buy it. Now, ask the real question. Am I going to buy it? No. No. I want to, but I'm not going to. So, data storage. So, I record a song, voice track, something like that on a radio, on a record, or a cassette tape or 8-track tape. I don't think. Did they ever have a you recorded 8-track tape system? I don't think they ever did. I mean, you can cassette recorders. You could record your own stuff on a cassette tape, but did they ever have Craig's old, he'd probably know if they had anything like that for 8 tracks. But to me, that's analog. So, you know what I mean? It doesn't change. It just records and plays back the actual sound. Now, to me, digital data storage is when you take that cassette and you convert it to zeros and ones, and you put all that you don't do it, you know what I mean. The software does it. And stores it in some type of media. A lot of times it's compressed, so it takes up less space. But it stores it, and it's not listened to zeros and ones. That's the way it's stored, and then when it's played back, the other part of the software, the playback part of it, takes those zeros and ones and goes, I know what this is, and puts it back out, puts it through the speakers, and I'm just using music as an example because that's where my analog and digital kind of straightens out in my head. And then it converts it back to something that is recognized as the song and words and tunes and everything that came in on the front side. So to me, analog, it goes in, it's recorded, and comes out in the same fashion. Digital, it goes in, it's converted to zeros and ones, and then as it comes out, it's reconverted back to the sound. Does that make sense? I don't know that. That's why I kind of have a hard time keeping straight digital and analog data. So tonight we'll be talking about and looking at digital data. And remember that one little part I talked about when you convert it from, your voice to zeros and ones, and sometimes it's compressed. I don't know how that works, but it's really cool because something big can be compressed. Some of that stuff's just unnecessary bits are thrown out, and it keeps what's pertinent, and it takes up less space. So apparently, as the computer age has progressed from the 70s, or maybe earlier, 60s, the amount of data that we as a race of humans living on planet Earth are generating is massive, massive, to the fact that there's almost not enough zeros in math to cover how much we're making and how much we will make and need to have stored. So really smart people are out there trying to figure out a way and a place to store all this information. So what I'm doing right now is being converted from analog as you hear me talking, to digital, and it will be stored on YouTube digitally. Now, I've made a lot of videos, where are we at now? 182, 183, somewhere it's written on here, I saw it. Anywho, there's thousands and hundreds of thousands of people doing very similar things. And so that data's got to be stored somewhere. Well, it's got to be, even though it's digital, it's got to be physically stored. And that takes up space, takes up physical space. So tonight we're going to look at just a brief history and then a couple of interesting ways we're looking at, not we as the human race, a lot smarter fellers than me are figuring it out. And gals. There are some gals that are a lot smarter than me, trust me. Probably a lot more than what you'd think. I know, it's tough to believe. But anyway, they're coming up with ways to look into the future, and it's like, geez, man, how are we going to keep all this stuff? There's not libraries big enough, data servers big enough to store it. So let's see if we can get into here. Find this out, data storage. Where do we want to start? Where is it? Oh, oh, oh. That's cool. But nope, that's not where we're starting. Okay, that's where we're going to start. I'm sorry. I know. Oh, golly, that's a pretty face. How did that get in there? La -da 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 -da. There we go. I'm on the struggle. I'm the leading driver on the struggle bus tonight. Okay. A brief history of data storage. Come on, buddy. Scoot that over so everybody can see it. All right. Now, if you're as old as I am, you will remember some of these things. Put that over there. Okay. A brief history of data storage. This is off of dataversity.net. It's by Keith D. Foote, and it's in 2017. So some things have changed, but not a lot, I guess. Punch cards were the first effort at data storage in a machine language. So to me, that means machine language would be some form of digital storage. Punch cards were used to communicate information to equipment before computers were developed. The punched holes originally represented a sequence of instructions for pieces of equipment such as textile looms and player pianos. So, very early, people realized you could take a card, or like in a player piano, a roll of paper or material, and if you punched holes in a certain place and then you read that, it could lead to music or maybe verbal, not written communication, something like that. So the holes acted as on-off switches. Okay, Basil Bochin developed the punch card as a control in 1725. 1725. In 1837, a little over 100 years later, Charles Babbage proposed the analytical engine, a primitive calculator with moving parts that used punched cards for instructions and responses. So that machine was communicating with punch cards. Herman Hollerith developed this idea and made the analytical engine a reality by having the holes represent not just a sequence of instructions, but stored data the machine could read. So this is jumping a little bit ahead. Let's see where it goes next. He developed a punch card data processing system for the 1890 U.S. Census, and then started the tabulating machine company in 1896. By 1950, punch cards had become an integral part of the American industry and government. The warning, "Do not fold, spindle, or mutilate," originated from punch cards. Punch cards were still being used quite regularly into the mid-1980s. Punch cards continue to be used in recording the results of standardized tests and voting ballots. No more. No more voting ballots. All right, so that little sentence about punch cards were still being used quite regularly into the mid-1980s. When I was in college, I had the task, I made the mistake, and this is probably 83, 82, 83, of taking a computer class at ETSU. And that was, buddy, I was in over my head, no doubt. But I'm trying to remember how this went. I had a project, and it was like a survey. And I had to take all my survey questions, enter them into a computer, and have the computer compute the yeses and the nos and the statistic, the numbers. Let's just say, do you like beef liver, yes or no? Very simple. That's not what it was about, but I'm just using that as an example. So then you put this in the computer and it would tabulate how many yeses, how many nos, tell you what the percentage was, how many people you talked to, or how many people participated in the survey, yada, 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 so forth, so on. Well, it was all done with punch cards. And as I recall, you sit down like at a typewriter machine that had punch cards, and they were maybe not quite this big, but maybe like that big. Okay? The punch card itself. And so you stack these things in like a stand-up tray, just like copy paper. Okay? And as you typed it on this machine, it punched these cards out and then would spit them out in order. In order. That's very important. So you program this thing by typing all your instructions on these cards. And then when you wanted to run the program or whatever, you had to take these cards in order. Take them to the computer, and sometimes you'd have to go at 1 or 2 a.m. to get access to the mainframe. It wasn't a PC, personal computer. It was a mainframe. And you had to go whenever they could get compute time, and you had to almost like make an appointment. And you would go and you would stack these things in there, and it would read those things and spit the answers out in printed paper. I'm trying to remember what they called it. It was crazy, but I say in order with emphasis, because if you took one card out and threw it away, or you took one card and shuffled it into the bottom or the top or out of sequence, kablooey. This thing, it just blew up. So if you dropped your cards out of your little carrying box or whatever you had them in, you would just almost be better off trying to write the whole thing over again as to try to reorder the cards. Not a fun time. And if you got one wrong, it was cryptic on how to fix it. It would give you an error message. Anyway, not a fun time. Okay, in 1960s, magnetic storage gradually replaced punch cards as the primary means for data storage. Magnetic tape was first patented in 1928 by Fritz Hulemeyer. Cassette tapes were often used for homemade personal computers in the 70s and 80s. Yes, I can vouch for that too. In 1965, Mohawk Data Science offered a magnetic tape encoder described as a punch card replacement. By 1990, the combination of affordable personal computers and magnetic disk storage had made punch cards nearly obsolete. So one of my very first jobs that I had of any consequence was that I was a manager or assistant manager and later on a general manager at a local movie theater. And during that time, this was probably 84, 5, 6, something like that, we had a computer in the office, and at the end of the day, we would enter our information in the monochrome green, computer type with, you know, if you've ever seen them. Anyway, you would type this stuff in and you would go through a series of questions. And the way you went through these series of questions is you had magnetic discs, like a 4x5 magnetic disc. And you would put it in there, lock the drive down, it would read it, and you would go through a series of questions. And then when that one was done, you would unlock it, pull that out, stick another one in there, lock it in there, and then the sequence, the questions would continue, and you'd fill all this data out. And then at the end of the night, you would use a modem. You'd call up the home office, and you'd feed these things back in there, and it would read that data that you answer these questions and ship it off to the home office. And you did that every night. Every night. And, you know, then it went, what were those things? Those were huge. Was it 4x5? The next ones, those were floppy disks. They were like in a paper sleeve, and you could flop them, and they would just bend like paper. It was crazy. But you had them in sequence. Then you went to the 3x5, the hard floppies. I've probably got some of those things around here. You went to those. That was next, and of course, the storage capacity went up and up and up and up as you went along. Surprised I don't have some sitting right here, man. I usually got some of those, you know. There we go. These devils right here. Yeah. Lots of things went on there. So anyway, let's go on. All right, so maybe that's a little bit much. Ow. Vacuum tubes were used for random access memory. 1948, Professor Frederick Williams and colleagues developed the first random access memory, or RAM, for storing frequently used programming instructions, in turn increasing the overall speed of the computer. So it's 1948. Let's jump down here. The twistor magnetic memory was invented in 1957 by Andrew Bobick. It creates computer memories using very fine magnetic wires interwoven with current-carrying wire. It is similar to core memory, but the wrapped magnetic wires replace the circular magnets, and each intersection of the network represents one bit of data. Very complicated. All right, so in 1966, the newly formed Intel Corporation began selling a semiconductor chip with 2,000 bits of memory. A semiconductor memory chip stored data in a small circuit referred to as a memory cell. Memory cells are made up of miniaturized transistors and are miniaturized capacitors, which act as on-off switches, zeros and ones. 1 is on, 0 is off. So it's hard to wrap your brain around binary numbers. A 1 or a 0, how do you ever... I've looked at that. Okay. Backety. Magnetic disk storage is what everybody's kind of familiar with. Magnetic drums were the first incarnation of magnetic disk storage. It was in 1932. They wrote it on a drum. IBM is primarily responsible for driving the early innovation of magnetic disk storage and invented both the floppy disk drive and the hard disk drive. Now, these that I just showed you are still considered a floppy disk, even though they didn't flop like the original ones. Okay, IBM switched its focus to 8-inch floppy disks from 1969 to the mid-80s. Those are the big ones. They were in a square piece of paper. Floppy disk is an easily removable, easily installed portable storage device. All right. 5 1/4 inch floppy. That's what I just had. That was in 76. 3 1/2 inch floppy, introduced in 82. More popular, 5 1/4 inch floppy. 3 1/2 inch floppy came with significant advantage. It had a rigid cover. Now that's what we just looked at. All right. So you get the idea. they've been trying to store things in uh, you know, portable media, something that they could stuff more and more and more and more and more onto it. So I heard a news story the other day, and we'll jump to it first because it still plays along the same lines as I have a bunch of data and I've got to store it, and I'm going to store it on a server that's dedicated to storing information. Okay? So we'll go along those lines. All right? Lone Star. Where did it go? Lone Star's moonshot firm aims to place data center on the lunar surface. All right, so I heard this news story, and this company, along with maybe some others, are looking at physically building data centers on the moon. And I thought, that is so stupid. Why would they do that? And here's what I remembered out of the story. So, there's the same side of the moon faces Earth all the time. I didn't know that till a few years ago. So, if you put a data center on the moon facing the Earth, it would always be, I'll say visible, but it will always have access to the Earth. All right, and as the Earth spins, I know you would lose contact with that, but still, it's apparently close enough, the moon is apparently close enough to make retrieval of the data economical. It's solar powered because we see the sunny side of the moon all the time, so it's exposed to the sun. It's solar powered. It's cool, so it's naturally cooling up on the moon. Hard drives and all that kind of stuff, they don't need air to breathe or any of that kind of stuff. So the fact that there's no atmosphere is not a problem. And now with SpaceX going up to space all the time, they think it'll be economical, maybe not today, but in the near future, economical to take a moonshot and put it and somehow store data and actually not just put it up there and keep it and never look at it again, but to put it up there and actually pull stuff down, push stuff up, pull stuff down, push stuff back up, and act like a big, some type of hard drive, if you will, on the moon, a big data center on the moon. Yes, exactly, Freddie. Not to the cloud, but to the moon. Yes. Yeah, you're catch on quick. So, I mean, in a way it makes sense. And in a way it doesn't make sense. So let's look at the article and see what it says. It's a 2-minute read. Hang with me, people. The space startup will use SpaceX Falcon 9 rockets to launch a fully assembled data center late next month. When was this written? This is on MSN.com. Story was by Reuters 2 days ago. 1/21/2025. Okay, so that was the 21st, 2 days ago. Later next month, so somewhere in February. Cheaper rocket launches, abundant solar energy, and cost-effective cooling systems have fueled a race among startups to transform space into a massive data hub capable of meeting the growing computational needs of technologies and including AI. Now, when I heard the story on this podcast that we're talking about, yeah, Garthog says, gives to the moon, Alice, a new meaning. So wasn't uh, Alice, was that the honeymooners? Is that the one where Alice was? Maybe I'm thinking of something else. Maybe that's Alice in Wonderland. Anywho, they talked about ownership. And, you know, I think there's an international treaty signed that says no one can own the moon. No one country can own the moon. So it leads me, you know, would the United States have like a county up there that was, you know, not really owned, but this is reserved. This space is reserved for America. Excuse me, because yeah, honeymooners. Good. I'm not completely out of touch with my old 1950s TV series. How would you secure that, right? How would you secure your data from physical attack on the moon? That would be a question that I would have. The company is pulling out all the stops to ensure the mission goes smoothly. The idea of using Earth's largest satellite as an anchor point for it's far enough that we can have security on communications. Adding the focus was on disaster recovery and storage and not on latency-dependent activities. Let me read that again. This idea of using Earth's largest satellite as an anchor point. It's far enough that we can have security on communications. The status. So the later part of that sentence, paragraph, focuses on disaster recovery and storage and not on latency-dependent activities. So when I said you could put stuff up and take stuff down, you can, maybe not in real time according to this. So you wouldn't want to store your Word document up there as you were typing on it. You may want to store your resume up there and update it every 6 months or something like that. So you put it up there, have it stored, then you could pull it down, make some adjustments to it, put it back up there and store it, but not as an ongoing back and forth, something like that. Its operations will also have ground-based backup from data centers firms, Flexental's Tampa, Florida facility. So the concept of space-based data centers is gaining traction as energy needs to maintain such operations on Earth grow sharply. Last month, Lumen Orbit raised $11 million on a $40 million valuation. Lone Star has raised nearly $10 million with a valuation of less than $30 million. Hosting data centers in space has its own challenges, including cumbersome maintenance, limited scope of upgrades, and high costs of launching rockets. There is also the risk of failed rocket launches. So when you launch a satellite into space, it's either there or it's not, according to them. There's no way to recover it. So what I thought you would kind of do, maybe they're thinking, I don't know, is you would send it up there empty. And then once it gets there and you bring it online, then you would use guaranteed a lot of time, data, communication effort to upload it. The other alternative is you prepare it here, you put the storage on it here, and then you send it up. And if you lose that satellite with all the data stored on it, then you lose that data with it. That's probably the big risk because, yes, it would be more economical to put stuff on a hard drive here where it would be easy, put that in your data center, and then send it to the moon, as opposed to sending the data center up there empty and then uploading all your data once it gets there. I mean, I could see that in a way, especially we're going to look at this next little idea that just even blows my mind further. It talks about how much data there is to be stored. I alluded to it first of the show was, we're making storage, cloud storage, moon storage every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Multiple peoples are making stuff to be stored digitally. And now, it's not just your 18s, 20s, 30s, 40s age people. It's your dare I say it, 5 and 6 and 7-year-old people that are, writing things down, or not writing, typing things and storing them digitally and wanting to save them for later. So everybody across the spectrum from, very young age to very old age is creating digital content, working documents, legal documents, fun documents, videos. All this stuff has to be stored. So where's it all going to go? And the cost of storage. That's what these people are talking about. So next is this crazy idea of storing this stuff in DNA. Now, I first heard this and I thought, that is crazy talk. Let me see. I want to scoot that over right there. DNA, dihydroxynucleic stuff, whatever DNA stands for. I don't know. Nucleic acid or something. It's been a couple of days since I went to high school chemistry or high school biology. All right, so the double helix can archive a staggering amount of information in an almost inconceivably small volume. In a world flooded with data, figuring out where and how to store it effectively and inexpensively becomes a large problem every day. One of the most exotic solutions might turn out to be one of the best archiving information in DNA molecules. The prevailing long-term cold storage method, which dates from the 1950s, writes data to pizza-sized reels of magnetic tape. By comparison, DNA storage is potentially less expensive, more energy efficient, and longer lasting. Studies show that DNA properly encapsulated with a salt remains stable for decades at room temperature and should last much longer in the controlled environment of a data center. DNA doesn't require maintenance, and files stored in DNA are easily copied for negligible cost. So now, here's something that I didn't know until recently, tonight, is they're not talking about human DNA, even though that's, whenever I hear DNA, that's exactly what I go to in my mind is human DNA. They're talking about, I won't say synthetic, but man-made DNA, the double helix strand. So it's not like they're, pulling DNA out of your brain and storing data on it. Exactly how it works, I am not sure. But in my mind, when they said DNA, I immediately went to human DNA, but that's not necessarily the case. DNA can archive a staggering amount of information in an almost inconceivably small volume. Consider this. Humanity will generate an estimated 33 zettabytes of data by 2025. All right, so back up. This is May 28th, 2021 is when this was written, scientificamerican.com. So back in May of 21, this is when it was written. And they're talking about, at that point, the future, which is our now present, 2025. 33 zettabytes. That's 3.3 followed by 22 zeros. 22 zeros. That's how much information we were supposed to generate by sometime in 2025. That's crazy. DNA storage can squeeze all that information into a ping pong ball size with room to spare. So I don't have a ping pong ball, but everybody knows how big a ping pong ball is, right? Most people, this big, round. How does it do that? That's don't know. The 74 million bytes of information in the Library of Congress, just in one place, in the Library of Congress. Now, get that, 74 million millions. So not just 1 millions, not 2 millions, but 1 million millions times 74. So 74 million millions is in the Library of Congress. Just one place. It could be crammed into a DNA archive the size of a poppy seed. Now, do you know how big a poppy seed is? If you've ever had, it always comes to my mind, is it poppy seed muffins? The delicious little cakey cookie things that you eat. It's got poppy seed. They're not even BB sized. That's how small. They're smaller than BB sized. They're like strawberry seed sized. Maybe a little bit bigger than that. So, all right. So 74 million bytes of information can be crammed into the DNA archive the size of a poppy seed. But here's another kicker. 6,000 times over. So the poppy seed sized DNA storage device contains 6,000 times more room than you would need to store 74 million bytes of information. Why go to the moon? Why go to the moon? Now, I won't say security, but yeah, security is a big thing because not everybody can get to the moon. Physical protection is probably the best reason. And why would you say physical protection? Let's just say we do, as a human race, screw up this planet, or we get struck by an asteroid, which is probably more likely. Something flying through space smacks the Earth so hard that it just obliterates all life on Earth. And probably with that, it's going to be most of the data storage. Or we nuke ourselves to death and all the EMP energy just erases all the drives, everything. DNA is a living thing. In my mind, I think it's living. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's like jelly. I don't know. It used to be living. It's not so living now. I don't know. But it kills it. potentially everything could be backed up, stored safely on the moon. So if something happens later on in this galaxy life as we know it, it could be found. Not all would be lost. Is this science fiction? Hardly. DNA storage technology exists today, but to make it viable, researchers have to clear a few daunting technological hurdles around integrating different technologies. As a part of a major collaboration to do that work, our team in Los Alamos National Laboratory, where the hydrogen bomb was invented, has developed a key enabling technology for molecular storage. Our software, the Adaptive DNA Storage Codex, translates data files from the binary language of zeros and ones, I've talked about that earlier, that computers understand into the four-letter code biology understands. So you know DNA is like software programming. It's like a program written, in our case, for the human body. My specific human body, your specific human body. It is software code written. They've proven that DNA can be read and understood like a computer program that programs your cells in your body, what to be, where to go, how to behave, what's your function, what to do if you can't function. All those things are all encoded in that particular cell's DNA. And they're all different. Most of them are all different. Okay? So, ADS Codex is a key part of the Intelligence Advanced Research Project's Molecular Information Storage Program, which is known as MIST. MIST seeks to bring cheaper, bigger, longer-lasting storage to big data operations in government and private sector with a short-term goal of writing 1 terabyte, a trillion bytes, and reading 10 terabytes within 24 hours at a cost of $1,000. Apparently that's something significant. That doesn't mean anything to me, but they put it in there like it was important, so I'm going to say, hey, that's pretty cool. That's all right. I didn't think they'd ever be able to do that. Not in my lifetime. Wow. Go to the moon? Fly without wings? No, impossible. From computer code to genetic code. When most people think of DNA, they think of life. That's me, not computers. But DNA is itself a four-letter code for passing along information about an organism. DNA molecules are made from 4 types of bases or nucleotides, each identified by a letter. Adenine A, thymine T, guanine G, and cysto whatever C. They're the bases of the DNA code. Why don't they just go A, B, C, D, man? Providing the instruction manual for building every living thing on Earth. Fairly well understood technology, DNA synthesis has been widely used in medicine, pharmaceuticals, biofuel development, to name just a few applications. The technique organizes the bases into various arrangements indicated by self-sequencing of A, C, G, and T. These bases wrap in a twisted chain around each other, the familiar double helix, to form the molecule. The arrangement of these letters into sequences creates a code that tells an organism how to form. The complete set of DNA molecules makes up the genome, the blueprint of your body. By synthesizing DNA molecules, making them from scratch, researchers have found they can specify or write long strings of the letters A, C, G, and T, and then read those sequences back. The process is comparable to how a computer stored binary information. From there, it was a short concept step to encoding a binary computer file into a molecule. So, they did it, they're doing it, and they're wanting to store that stuff on the moon. So, it goes on to say that error rates while writing to molecular storage with DNA synthesizers are pretty high. The errors arise from a different source than they do in the digital world, making them trickier to correct. But I'm sure they'll figure that stuff out. So are they going to be storing everything in, ping pong sized? Let's see if it goes on ping pong sized brains or livers or whatever to me it has to be not hollow like a ping pong ball. It has to be solid and made up of stuff that holds DNA. And how do you connect to it? That's another thing. I was reading here quietly. It doesn't tell us much more. Let's see if we can get DNA data storage. Let's look up images. It's just going to show us a silly double helix. It's not going to show us what they've made. I was hoping they would show, physically what does this globule of DNA look like? How do you interact with it? How do you, plug into it in a way to get stuff in and out? What's this? So, storage limit. Estimates based on bacterial genetics suggest that digital DNA could one day rival or exceed today's storage technology. Interesting. All right. So it's not going to show us any kind of what it might look like physically. Data silos, data lakes. Cloud storage. That's what Freddie was alluding to. So I'm just blown away by the fact that I don't really think of digital data. I mean, to me, some of it's worth keeping and some of it's not worth keeping. So why do we keep all of it? Or do we keep all of it? I mean, it just seems like there's tons of information. What if that's only 1/3 of what the data produce, and that's just what we keep? I mean, everybody wants to keep my show, right? So there's got to be other things that aren't as important to keep forever. Only things that you want to keep forever digitally do you worry about storing on the moon or in DNA. So does the numbers they talk about include everything, or is that just the important stuff? Is that just, is that including every, dude that has a small YouTube channel and makes videos is going to be stored forever in DNA or on the moon? Or, according to this thing, a few ping pong sized DNA storage, I won't even call it a device, organism, would be all that you would need to store all the information in the world. I mean, that's what it seems like to me in the world. I mean, that'd be, what would you do with that? Would you carry it around in your pocket? I mean, I just think of DNA as like a brain, you know, biological flesh and bone material junk that bleh, you carry around in your pocket, poke a wire into it and read it. I don't know. But I think I like that idea better than the moon. I bet the guy that thought about the moon storage looks at this DNA and thing and goes, should have thought about DNA. Why was I thinking the moon? I've already started it. I got to follow through with it to the moon or bust, right? So, food for thought. Food for thought. We produce a lot of junk in this world, and we want to keep a hold of every last bit of it. So we're going to have to figure this stuff out. So anyway, Freddie, Craig, Garthog, appreciate everybody coming. Anybody that's kind of hiding out into the chat, but didn't type anything, I appreciate you showing up. So like, subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment, let me know, what do you think about DNA storage? I mean, it's coming down to where you could keep everything, anything, and everything in your entire life and stored in like one little double helix DNA thing tucked under your tongue somewhere, or shot into your arm or someplace, and just carry it around with you the whole time. I mean, it could be your whole life story right there. Or is it already being stored in your body and we just haven't found the right sequence of DNA and how to interpret it and get it out? I don't know. Crazy. But anyway, until next time, enjoy the nice warm weather. It's supposed to be heat wave this weekend. Get out there and put your feet into the little old wading pool. Get you a mint julep with the umbrella on it. I think it put it on Mars. But see, I understand that way you could actually have people up there managing it, laying hands on it. But the moon, I think one of the things they're looking at on the moon is when you do want to download and upload your document or your life history, or your copy of War and Peace, whatever it might be that's being stored up there. I mean, I don't know how long it would take to get it back from Mars as opposed to the moon. Plus, if you have people living on Mars, what happens if they get into a fight and destroy it all? I don't think anybody's, maybe they are still thinking about colonizing the moon. I don't know. I don't know. When are they supposed to colonize Mars? What's he got planned? Is it the next 15 years, next 20 years? I don't know. But having human interaction with your secure data has always been a problem. Somewhere, somebody might get mad and pick that thing up off the ground and on the moon because there's not a lot of gravity. It might not weigh enough. People could just pick it up, toss it out into space, and there it'd be, gone forever. I don't know. I didn't even know they could write stuff to DNA and get it back. I'm just, how does that work? How do you physically write stuff to something that's so small and then get it back? I see how you can look at stuff under a microscope. I get that. I've looked through microscopes. I know that I can look at things, but in order to interact with it tell it things, have it remember things, and then give them back to me. How does that physically happen? How does that physically happen? I have no idea. Doesn't make sense. All right, my brain's hurting. Too much stuff that I don't know what's going on. Back to signing off. Thanks again. Come back next Thursday. Leave me a comment. Send me an email. Well, thank you, Freddie. I appreciate it. You must be in. You must be into the adult beverages this evening. But I appreciate you coming by. Come on back. Give me an idea of what you want to talk about. Call the number on the screen and we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. You can tell everybody about your car and we can bring up pictures of it and show the pictures on YouTube. I've been looked at some of those videos, how some of it was done and the wraps and different things like that. Pretty cool. But anyway, come on back next week, Thursday. Facebook, Instagram, X, all Minutes with Milo. All right. Follow me there. Follow me here. Follow me everywhere. Send me flowers. I don't care. All right, everybody. Good night. Till next time. Y'all have a good weekend. Bye.